When a billionaire's heart stopped, the shocking truth behind his love for a struggling mechanic. The rumors exploded like fireworks on the 4th of July, the kind that filled the sky with colors but left a lingering darkness in their wake. A billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the world, suddenly collapsed in his office. Just as he was about to close a deal worth millions, his heart betrayed him. It was as if the universe had orchestrated this moment, the heart of a titan silenced forever, leaving behind a trail of whispers that spilled into the streets like coffee on a white shirt. Who would inherit his empire, and what secrets did he take to the grave? It was a scandal that no one saw coming, but the plot thickens. Days later, it emerged that he had been spotted in the dingy backroom of a mechanic's shop. Odd, right? An extravagant billionaire, known for his luxurious taste and glittering galas, and yet here he was, surrounded by the scent of gasoline and grease, chatting with none other than Jake, a struggling mechanic. The man could barely make ends meet, yet he was the last person anyone expected the billionaire to be enamored with. People gasped, they exchanged worried glances and conspiratorial whispers. What could connect two such different worlds? And what unshakable bond was there between them that drove a man with everything to seek solace in a rundown garage? And then, the rumors twisted again. Jake had a peculiar family history that turned the intrigue up a notch. His grandfather, a once prominent mechanic himself, vanished under mysterious circumstances. Could the mechanic's past hold the key to unlocking secrets the billionaire harbored in his heart? Were there connections buried deep, waiting to be unearthed like hidden treasure? The clock was ticking, and whispers of secrets buried beneath layers of glamour and grit filled the air with a suffocating tension. What could possibly tie them together in such an uncanny way? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the news spread like wildfire, Jake found himself the reluctant center of attention, grappling with questions he never wanted to face. The more he thought about it, the tighter the knot in his stomach grew. Could a shared moment at the mechanic's shop hold the weight of a lost legacy? Or a betrayal so deep it threatened to unravel everything he knew? With tension mounting and eyes scrutinizing his every move, Jake stood at the edge of an abyss, feeling the pull of untold mysteries behind him. What lay ahead? The million-dollar question hung heavy in the air, begging to be answered. Jake barely slept. Each tick of the clock felt louder than a marching band, echoing in the empty, stale garage. Night swallowed him whole. The headlines buzzed through his mind, each one sharper than the last. A billionaire's heart stopped in his prime, and the guy everyone blamed for it was him. It was an overwhelming weight, as though someone had piled boulders on his chest that he tossed in bed, replaying one moment in his mind, the billionaire's piercing blue eyes locked onto his, searching. For what? Understanding? Connection? The depth of that gaze still sent shivers down Jake's spine. But with that connection came a flood of questions. How could someone with so much seek solace in a place so humble? And why did it feel like they shared a secret that the world was ready to explode over? The next morning, his phone buzzed, rattling on the wobbly table. It was Claire, the waitress from the diner he frequented. "You've got to see this," she shouted through the line, excitement bubbling over. "Get to the newsstand." Before he could even finish answering, she hung up. Heart racing, he pulled on his jacket, a faded relic from better days, and sprinted outside. The clouds hung low as he made his way to the nearest newsstand. He didn't need to ask what Claire meant, the swarm of people gathered there told him all he needed to know. The front page screamed his name. Mechanic was last seen with Billionaire. What did he know? Gasps erupted around him. Fingers pointed, whispers piled on top of each other like waves crashing against a crumbling wall. Jake felt his stomach twist. Thoughts raced. What secrets did they think he had? Squaring his shoulders, he pushed through the crowd, determined to find out. The vendor, a doughy man with tired eyes, handed him a copy. "Don't let them get to you, kid," he said, voice gruff but kind. "This world's got no shortage of vultures." Jake scanned the article. It was a dizzying mix of half-truths and fabrications but hinted at a connection that dug deep into his family's past. It mentioned the grandfather who had vanished, tethering him to a mystery he only half understood. His heart thundered. What if the truth lay buried in the shadows he had never dared to explore? Rumors swirled as he stepped back into the street, the world spinning with voices. "You're in way over your head," one guy sneered. Another whispered about how it might be Jake who struck the fatal deal that ended the billionaire's life. Through the chaos, Jake spotted a familiar face, Margot, his old high school friend. She looked as shocked as the rest but no less determined. As she approached, concern etched on her brow, she spoke quietly, each word deliberate. "Jake, there's something you need to know. I heard from someone that he wasn't just talking about cars in that shop. They were discussing something big, something dangerous." His pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a black SUV pulled up, tinted windows masking the occupants. The air felt electric, an unshakable tension surfacing. Was it a press vehicle? A hit squad? Jake's mind raced with possibilities as he searched Margot's face for guidance. "Run!" she urged, suddenly urgent. "Get out of here now." He didn't need to be told twice. Jake took off, adrenaline propelling him forward, but what had he just stumbled into? And what if he didn't find answers fast enough? The shadows were closing in, threatening to swallow him whole. As he darted into an alleyway, heart pounding, the million-dollar question loomed larger than ever. What dangerous game had he unwittingly stepped into, and at what cost? The rumbling of the SUV's engine echoed behind him, and a chilling realization gripped him: someone was coming for him, and they weren't just after answers. They wanted him silenced. Jake's breath came in frantic bursts as he sprinted down the narrow alley, the weight of the world crashing down behind him in the growl of the SUV's engine. He could hear it heavy and relentless, closing in like a predatory beast. For a fleeting moment, he considered darting into a nearby doorway, but doubt twisted in his gut. There was no sanctuary there, only more uncertainty. His mind raced with the words Margot had spoken, echoing like a warning bell. Something big, something dangerous. Jake could feel the adrenaline pooling into a raw blend of fear and clarity. He couldn't let himself get caught, not now, not when he was so close to unraveling the truth. Without thinking, he plunged deeper into the labyrinth of the alleyways. A cautious glance over his shoulder cast shadows of doubt on every step he took. The growl of the SUV faded momentarily, but he knew they weren't giving up. The world outside felt distant, muffled by the heavy chaos of his thoughts. The headlines, the whispers, they all swirled in his mind like a tormented whirlwind, each one threatening to drag him under. Suddenly, there was a flash of color that cut through the gray. A flickering neon light offered a dim promise of a bar at the end of the alley. Jake's instincts told him to keep running, but desperation clawed at him, urging him to take refuge just long enough to catch his breath and regroup. Pushing through the heavy door, he stumbled into a darkened room alive with low murmurs and the clinking of glass. The smell of spilled beer and cigarette smoke enveloped him like a shroud. He leaned against the wall, attempting to steady his racing heart, his eyes scanning the faces shadowed in the dim light. Would they look at him with suspicion? Would they know he was running? The bartender, an older man with a grizzled beard, glanced up, his gaze sharp. "You all right, kid?" Jake hesitated, swallowing hard, unsure how to answer. "Yeah, just a little tired." "Right." The bartender gave him a knowing look, as if he could sense the fear radiating from Jake. "You need to be careful. It's not safe around here." Jake nodded, an uneasy flicker of gratitude swelling in his chest. I know. I just need a minute. As he caught his breath, visions of the billionaire's piercing blue eyes flashed in his memory. The shared secret hung between them like a haunting melody. What had they talked about? What had that old man with all his wealth needed from someone like him? The door swung open again, this time slamming against the wall. The figure that stepped in sent a shiver crawling down Jake's spine. Dressed in black, with a lean build and steely eyes, he scanned the room, his expression ice-cold. Jake's heart dropped. Was this the person sent to silence him? Jake pressed himself deeper into the shadows, each breath shallow, painfully aware of the ticking clock racing against him. The man's gaze swept the bar, pausing for a moment before locking onto Jake's hiding spot. Time slowed. The world narrowed, focusing entirely on that fleeting second. The figure started to move. Jake's instincts screamed at him to run, but the bartender stepped forward, blocking the man's path. You looking for someone? The tension thickened, and time melted away like ice under a hot sun. Jake held his breath, desperation coiling tighter around him. He had to get out, but how? The back exit loomed behind him, unguarded. But there was nowhere to go after. The city felt like a trap, and he was caught in its jaws. As the confrontation erupted between the bartender and the man, Jake took a step back. Freedom could be just beyond that door, but the uncertainty of what lay on the other side stung harder than the fear of staying. In that moment, as the muffled voices raised in intensity, Jake faced the reality he'd been avoiding. Would he flee into the unknown or confront this shadow looming over his fate? And just before he could make a choice, a loud crash shattered the air, drowning out the crowd's murmurs. The bar erupted into pandemonium. What did he truly want? A life away from danger, or the answers that could shatter everything he knew? He needed to decide before it was too late. The crash sent a wave of panic sweeping through the bar. Glass shattered, chairs scraped against the floor, and bodies surged toward the exits like a flood. Jake's heart raced as he pushed against the crowd, panic thick in the air. He could feel it, the pressure of danger intensifying with every passing second. The dark figure, once focused on him, was now lost in the chaos. The bartender's voice rose, trying to maintain control, but the noise drowned him out. Jake's instincts kicked in. He needed to move. Forget about the mystery or the secrets connecting him to the billionaire. Survive first, ask questions later. He darted toward the back exit, pushing past startled patrons who stumbled under the weight of confusion. Outside, the cool night air hit him like a splash of cold water. He took a moment to breathe, the adrenaline in his veins bubbling with urgency. The alleyway stretched ahead, and he could hear tires screeching in the distance. They were coming for him. He darted left, plunging into another narrow passage, trying to shake the weight of every shadow lurking behind him. He could hear the faint growl of the SUV again, like a predator that refused to relent. The sound poured into his ears and made him move faster, the adrenaline coursing through him, pushing him harder. With each step, fragments of last nights replayed in his mind. Conversations, laughs, and that piercing blue gaze. The billionaire had told him things that didn't add up. Now Jake feared they were linked by something far darker than simple happenstance. Suddenly, a shout cut through the noise. There he is. He glanced back and saw the lean figure bursting out of the bar, his expression dark and resolute. Jake's heart thudded loud enough for him to hear over the chaos. This was not just a pursuit, it was a hunt, and he was the prey. From his left, another alley opened up, and he flung himself into it. A dumpster loomed large, and he ducked behind it, chest heaving. The panting breaths escaped him like a raw wound, each one reminding him of the danger chasing him. He pressed himself against the cold metal, straining to listen. That way. The man's voice echoed as he clipped through the shadows, the sound growing fainter as he pushed forward. This was Jake's moment. Jake took a chance, breathing deeply to focus. He needed to be smart. Blind panic would only lead him deeper into danger. He crept out from behind the dumpster, cautiously making his way back toward the main street. The night felt heavy, and each echo of his footfalls felt like a drumroll ushering in his impending doom. Suddenly, a flash caught his eye, and he froze. There, under a flickering streetlight, stood a figure he instantly recognized, a woman with dark hair and striking features. Margot. Her eyes widened as they locked onto his, and in that instant, he felt an inexplicable connection, a safety net woven from shared fears. Margot. He gasped, urgency drowning out reason. They're coming for me. I know, she whispered, glancing back down the alley. I saw everything. We don't have much time. I overheard something that could change everything. But we need to move now. Fear twisted inside him, battling against an intense curiosity. What had she discovered? What had the billionaire truly been hiding? As Margot took his arm, they moved together, melting into the night. The sense of dread hung heavy, yet the glimmer of hope flickered in Jake's chest. Maybe this was the turning point, the moment where answers might spring forth from the shadows and light the dark path ahead. But the growl of an engine returned, echoing against the brick walls, a growl that seemed to laugh at their fleeting embers of hope. They were cornered. Time was running out, and the pressure of the chase bore down on them. What had Margot overheard that would change everything? And would it be enough to save them both from what was coming? Jake and Margot raced through the chill of the night, the thump of their hurried footsteps a staccato rhythm of panic. The sound of the SUV grew louder, a predator edging closer, hungry for its prey. With each corner they turned, every breath became a battle against fear's grasp. Why are they after you? Margot whispered, urgency sharp in her voice. Her eyes darted back toward the looming shadows, searching for threats. I don't even know. Jake replied, the weight of uncertainty simmering beneath his skin. It's got to be connected to what I found out about the billionaire. We need answers. A flicker of understanding crossed Margot's face, but before she could respond, a tired old building loomed ahead, its doors seemingly ajar. Without thinking, they dashed inside. The stale air smelled of forgotten history, echoing with uncertainty. They stepped into a cramped stairwell, illuminated by just a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Margot pressed herself against the wall, peering through the door, trying to catch sight of their pursuers. Jake could feel a knot tightening in his stomach, suffocating his thoughts. Jake, listen to me carefully, Margot said, her voice low but firm. What I overheard, there's more involved than just you and the billionaire. There's a lot of money at stake, and someone is willing to kill to cover it up. Kill? He echoed. The gravity of her words hit him like a punch. What does that mean? Who's behind this? I overheard some men talking about a deal gone wrong, she stammered, her brow furrowing. They mentioned your name, and something about collateral. Collateral? Panic rose within him like a tidal wave. I'm not collateral. I'm not part of any deal. Then we need to figure out how to turn the table on them. Margot's determination ignited a spark in his chest. Suddenly, the sound of distant footsteps echoed ominously in the hallway, drawing nearer. Margot and Jake exchanged a frantic glance. There was no time to waste. Let us find a way out. He gestured toward the staircase, leading them quietly upward, each creak of the stairs nipping at their heels. They climbed 2 flights before pausing in the silence of an empty landing. The tension was thick, hanging heavy between them like fog. Margot leaned against the railing, her breath coming in quick bursts. If they said your name, they must know who you are. What did you discover that's got them so worked up? Jake remembered the billionaire's glance, the urgency in his voice. There's something, Margot. He was working on something big, something that involved his past and mine. What do you mean? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know yet, but I think I'm somehow tied to it. Something about a cover-up associated with a tragedy that haunts him. I need to find the answers before it's too late. Suddenly, a door slammed below, shattering the stillness. The unmistakable sound of footsteps grew closer, heavy and determined. They were running out of time. Margot's eyes darted, scanning for any escape route. We need to find a place to hide, or we're done. What if we lock ourselves in a room? Jake's heart raced as he spotted a door slightly ajar at the end of the landing. In there. He pushed it open, and they slipped inside, closing it quietly behind them. It was a dusty, dimly lit room filled with old furniture and odd apparatus that made it feel as if time had forgotten it. Jake couldn't shake the feeling they were trapped. One more step, one more mistake, and everything could come crashing down. He and Margot pressed back against the wall, breathless. The footsteps echoed ominously outside as they strained to listen. Think they'll find us? Jake whispered, heart pounding. Let us hope they don't. Margot's voice shook slightly, but her gaze remained focused. But if they do, we'll need a plan. Outside, a voice cut through the dimness. Check that room. The command was laced with authority. Jake's body tensed, thoughts racing. They needed to act fast. What if the reason behind the billionaire's secrets was darker than anyone believed? And what if it connected them both in a way neither expected? Get ready, Jake whispered. We might have to fight our way out. But before they could strategize, a loud crash echoed as someone forced the door open. Time froze, and fear surged in Jake's veins. What awaited them could change everything, but the real question loomed in the air: would they be ready to face it? The door swung open violently, splintering against the wall with a deafening crash that sent Jake and Margot's hearts into their throats. A shadowy figure stood in the doorway, backlit by the dim hallway, a menacing silhouette framed by dark intent. Where are they? The figure growled, scanning the room with chilling precision. His fingers twitched near a weapon tucked against his belt, and Jake's breath hitched. Stay quiet, Jake whispered, pressing against the wall as if trying to become one with it. Margot mirrored his tension, wide eyes locked onto the man's movements, each heartbeat punishingly loud in the silence. The intruder stepped inside, each sound of his boots echoing like a countdown to catastrophe. He moved with practiced confidence, and panic escalated inside Jake. He couldn't afford to be caught, not now, not with the truth hanging in the balance. How they had gotten into this mess, Jake couldn't comprehend. All he knew was they were now in a deadly game. As the man approached an old, rickety table in the corner, Margot's eyes darted to the window and escape route. A steep drop led down to an alleyway that felt like a grave. They'd have to jump, but would they survive what awaited them on the other side? Across the room, the intruder picked up a dusty artifact, squinting at it as if trying to decipher its existence. Maybe you two are smarter than I thought, he said lightly, mocking, but I know you're in here. You can only run for so long. Jake, we have to move. Margot's voice was barely audible, yet fierce, but before Jake could respond, a second figure appeared in the doorway, a hulking brute with a glint in his eye that promised pain. You had one job, Davis. Find them. He snarled, stepping into the room with an air of impatience. Shit, Jake breathed. There were now two men, and they were on borrowed time. The hostility in the air intensified, a sharp edge that cut through their confusion. Davis shifted his focus to Margot, a slow smirk unfurling on his lips. So, the kid brought a friend. How cute. It's as if the darkness around them deepened. Get back. Jake jumped forward instinctively, adrenaline injecting fire into his veins. Davis responded in an instant, pulling his weapon from its holster. The crack of metal was a flash of panic, and Jake knew that crossing this line meant life or death. Jake! Margot grabbed his arm, tugging him backward, the urgency of her pull amplifying the dread swelling in his chest. We have to go, now. In the heat of fear, Jake's mind raced. There was no plan, but instinct kicked in. He lunged toward the window, grabbing Margot's wrist, yanking her along as the heavy sound of boots thundered behind them. Run! He bellowed, launching himself through the open window and willing Margot to follow. The jagged pane of glass grazed his arm as he tumbled into the night, landing in a heap on the cold, hard ground. They didn't pause to check for injury. With shouts echoing behind them, they bolted into the alleyway. The darkness swallowed them, hiding their movements as they sprinted deeper into the shadows. Each step echoed against the brick walls, a relentless reminder of their pursuers. "I can't believe we jumped." Margot gasped between breaths, glancing back, the fear etched on her face. "We didn't have a choice." Jake shot back, desperation fueling their escape. "We need to split up, meet back at the diner." "What? Are you crazy?" Margot's eyes flared with disbelief. "We stick together. Trust me," he insisted. "There's too many. We can't be caught together." The hesitation flickered in her eyes, but the urgency of the moment pressed, like a weight pushing them apart. As they veered into separate alleyways, Jake's heart raced with both fear and hope. Alone, he had a better chance to uncover the truth and protect Margot. But the risk was monumental, the stakes thrusting them both into the unknown. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Jake took one last look back, the shadows of the two men looming behind him. Would he ever see Margot again? Would he piece together the truth that tied him to the billionaire's past? The alley swallowed him whole. But the truth waited, lurking, ready to pounce, and at that moment, Jake knew that his next move could very well be his last. What lay ahead could turn everything they knew upside down. Would the uncertain path he chose lead him closer to the answers or deeper into danger? The cold air cut through Jake's lungs as he dashed through the alleyways, the sound of his heart pounding in his ears. He was still in shock from the leap he took, the way fear twisted his stomach into knots. The darkness enveloped him like a thick fog, he could barely see 2 steps ahead. He sprinted past flickering street lamps, every shadow felt like a lurking threat. He had to find somewhere to hide, somewhere that wouldn't scream "I'm here" to the men pursuing them. His mind raced, memories of the old mechanic's shop flickering through his thoughts like flashing neon signs, sacred ground in a warzone of shadows. In a moment of clarity, he turned sharply into a narrow passage that led to the back of the building. It was a gamble, but worth the risk. Climbing over a rusted dumpster, he squeezed behind a stack of crates, pressing his back against the cold, unyielding bricks. Silence fell over him, but it was a deceptive silence, a pregnant pause before the inevitable storm. Jake's breath came slowly, steadying, but his thoughts ran wild. What had they stumbled into? Who were those men? Was Margot safe? He resisted the urge to check his phone. No signal, no way to know where she was, or if she was okay. The unease crept back in, clawing at his insides. The last image of her terrified face replayed in his head, and guilt washed over him in waves. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. His heart raced again, each beat loud enough to drown out the soft sounds of the night. The figures emerged, their silhouettes stretching against the meager light, eyes scanning the surroundings like hungry wolves. "Split up again," Davis's voice carried through the gloom. "We'll cover more ground that way." "Are you sure?" The brute's voice rumbled. "What if they get back to trust me?" "We'll find the girl," Davis snipped, determination slicing through his words. Jake clenched his fists. The girl. Margot. The very thought ignited a fire of protection inside him. They had no idea the lengths he would go to keep her safe. As the men turned, Jake saw an opportunity. He needed to act, but the stakes had never been higher. He waited, holding his breath, until they disappeared around the corner. Timing was crucial. If he miscalculated, it might be the end of everything. When the sounds faded, he took off. He moved quickly but quietly, darting toward the mouth of the alley, not knowing which direction to go. Each choice felt dangerous. What if he led them straight to Margot? The adrenaline coursed through him, urging him to flee, but he felt a pull back toward her. Was the diner far enough? Just then, a glint caught his eye at the opposite end of the street. A flickering neon sign, "Open." It was the diner. His heart sank. If he reached it and she wasn't there, he shook his head, making the decision. He had to get to the diner. She would know to look for him there. The hope of finding her propelled him forward. The closer he got, the more the shadows grew ominous. He could feel the darkness creeping in again, a weight that pressed against his chest. Glancing behind him, he saw movement, a shadow lurking just out of reach. Was it them? Were they coming for him? But as he pushed through the door of the diner, a wave of warmth hit him like a comforting blanket. The chatter of voices filled the air, a stark contrast to the adrenaline-fueled chaos outside. His eyes scanned desperately for Margot. A fleeting moment of relief washed over him until he spotted a figure in the corner booth, a figure that made his stomach drop. "What are you doing here?" It wasn't Margot. It was someone else entirely. A familiar yet unwelcome face that clenched the hope inside him tighter, wrenching it to a sharp stop. "Jake," the figure smirked, a sly glimmer in their eye. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find your way back." The tension in the air shifted, and Jake knew in that instant he had stepped into another trap, one he had not foreseen. What were they doing here? And where was Margot? Fear snagged at his throat. He had precious seconds before the truth dropped like a hammer. As they leaned in with chilling whispers, the stakes of his journey blurred further. The question hung heavy in the diner's air: would this new encounter seal his fate, or was it merely the beginning of something darker? Jake's heart raced as he stared at the smirking figure, his chest tightening with a surge of anger and fear. There was Simon, the last person he wanted to see, and the man was clearly reveling in Jake's dismay. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to stay calm, but it felt impossible. "Yeah, well, it's not a reunion I was hoping for," Jake snapped, his voice lower but laced with venom. "Is that so?" Simon leaned back, his eyes sparkling with a cruel delight. "You have quite the mess on your hands, don't you? I heard you were looking for someone. Too bad I don't think she'll be showing up. Not anytime soon." Panic shot through Jake. "What do you know about Margot?" "Relax. I know everything about you, Jake. You think I don't have eyes and ears everywhere?" Simon's amusement only seemed to grow with Jake's visible agitation. "I can help you or make things worse. Your choice." "Help me? You've never done anything but make my life hell," Jake spat, gripping the edge of the table. He felt trapped, like a rat in a cage, and the terror clawing at his insides was almost unbearable. "What if I told you I could make sure Margot is safe?" Simon leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "All you have to do is play along." Just then, the diner door swung open, the chime of the bell cutting through the tension like a knife. For a split second, Jake dared to hope, could it be Margot? But the figure stepping inside was not her. It was a familiar face, someone he thought he'd never see again. "Alex?" Jake blurted, his mind racing. His old friend from high school stood there, looking confused and apprehensive, clearly caught in the middle of something he wasn't prepared for. What the hell is going on? Alex's gaze darted between Jake and Simon, a warning dawning on his face. "Oh, just catching up," Simon said, his tone mocking. "Why don't you join us, Alex? I think you'll find this all very interesting." Jake shot a panic-stricken glance at Alex, desperate for help, but the old unease hung heavy in the air. "Get out of here, Alex. You don't want to be part of this." But Alex, ever the loyal friend, shook his head. "I'm not leaving you, man. Not like this." "Wise choice," Simon said, a sly grin spreading across his face. "More company means more fun. Let us see how deep this rabbit hole goes." Jake could feel the walls closing in, reality shifting in ways he could barely comprehend. His thoughts turned to Margot. What would Simon do if he had her? Was she safe? Would he hold her like a bargaining chip, playing with her life just to satisfy his twisted game? Simon's eyes glinted with a strange mix of amusement and malice. "How about we up the stakes? I have something that could change everything in your little world." "What are you talking about?" Jake's voice was sharper now, demand just barely veiling desperation, something twisted in Simon's features. A little trade, perhaps. I give you what you need, information about Margot, and you give me something in return. What do you want? The question slipped out, and the gravity of it hit Jake hard. Simon leaned closer, each word dripping with treachery. We'll discuss your payment, but first let us make sure we're all on the same page. I don't want to rush into anything. As Jake glared at Simon, dread filled him. The stakes had just moved higher, and he didn't know if he had the cards needed to play this game. He swallowed hard. Would it lead to Margot's safety or to a destiny riddled with horror? The sound of footsteps echoed outside, and his breath caught. It was time to decide, should he trust Simon, or take his chances elsewhere. But every second that ticked was another moment of danger for Margot. Could he really turn his back on the only opportunity he had, even if it meant dealing with a monster? Jake felt a grip tightening around his throat. This was turning into a nightmare he might not escape. Every move mattered now, but could he gamble with lives hanging in the balance? And in that moment, the door creaking open again sent his heart plummeting. What new nightmare awaited him on the other side? The confrontation was about to begin, and Jake felt both fear and courage intertwine. The moment the door swung open, Jake braced himself for whatever nightmare was about to step into the diner. His heart pounded as shadows stretched across the floor, the flickering lights overhead casting an eerie glow. But as the figure stepped inside, Jake's world tilted, spilling his dread and confusion into a chasm of uncertainty. A woman entered, her presence more electric than the charged air. It was Margot. Chains of fear clanked in Jake's mind, though relief pulsed through his chest. She looked disheveled, like she'd just run a marathon through hell. Her eyes darted around the diner before landing on him, a mix of anguish and confusion lighting her face. Margot! He yelled, instinctively pushing past Simon and Alex, who appeared momentarily frozen, caught in shock. You're safe. But instead of rushing into his arms, she hesitated, her demeanor betraying something deeper, something wrong. Jake, she said, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you. It's not safe here. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Not safe? What do you mean? He looked over at Simon, his instinct tearing between hope and dread. Simon's smirk had evaporated, replaced by a cold, calculating stare, and Jake felt the walls of the diner closing in even tighter. A group has been watching me, Margot whispered urgently, stepping closer, eyes wide with fear. They think I have something they want. I overheard them talking about a deal. What kind of deal? Jake demanded, pressing her for answers, his heart racing anew as Simon's shadow loomed over them. Something big. It ties back to you, Jake. Her breath hitched, and Jake wanted to reach out, but the fear in her eyes held him back. They want information about your family. About your father. Simon's grin returned, more sinister than ever. Isn't it adorable? Always the hero. But Margot, sweetheart, you really shouldn't be here. We all know there's a price to pay for meddling in matters beyond your understanding. Jake's mind raced. His father? What connection did Simon have to all this? Anger flared through him, heating up the air. You bastard! He shouted at Simon, his fists clenching. Careful now, Simon warned, his amusement morphing into a deadly calm. I'm just the messenger. But beware, there are worse players involved than me. Suddenly, the door slammed behind a silhouette, and a voice that felt like death wrapped in silk echoed through the diner. Well, look at the party I stumbled upon. Jake turned toward the voice, his stomach dropping. Standing in the doorway was a figure that made his blood run cold. Victor, the man rumored in whispers. No, not him, Margot gasped, pressing her cold hands to her face as if trying to erase the nightmare. Hello, sweetheart, Victor said, his smile sickeningly charming. I believe we have some unfinished business. The room was thick with tension. Jake's mind raced, struggling against the flood of fear that crashed over him. Victor's presence signaled the beginning of a war he didn't know he was part of. Run! Jake shouted to Margot, desperate to protect her. But Victor's look silenced them all. "No one is going anywhere," Victor replied smoothly, as if laying out a game of chess. "We're going to play this out for your lives." Jake's heart sank. No matter what, they were caught in the crossfire. As Victor stepped further into the diner, the atmosphere thickened with danger, and it felt as if shadows were conspiring against them. The stakes had just escalated into a dread-filled nightmare that left Jake gasping for breath, the clock ticking loudly in the silence. Could they find a way to escape this looming disaster, or were they already trapped in Victor's deadly game? And just as Jake's resolve hardened, a bone-chilling noise resonated outside, sending a jolt of panic coursing through him. What awaited them in the darkness beyond the diner? The air in the diner grew tense, drawn tight like a bowstring, as Victor advanced with a predatory grace. Every eye in the room locked onto him, fear dripping from their gazes. Jake felt his pulse race, the urgency of the moment racing through him like wildfire. He had to protect Margot. He had to figure out what Victor wanted. "Now, sweetheart, let us not play games," Victor purred, dark eyes glimmering with hunger. "I'm here for a little chit-chat and perhaps some collateral." "What do you mean?" Margot's voice was strained, matching the tension suffocating the diner. Jake stepped forward, positioning himself between her and Victor, determination igniting a fire within. "Easy now, Jake," Victor chuckled, tilting his head, amusement dancing in his eyes. "We both know that you're far out of your league. But here's the thing, I'm not just after Margot. I'm after you, and your little secrets. Your family has a history that could unravel very well for me." Jake's stomach twisted. Secrets? What had the billionaire left behind? "You don't know anything," he shot back, trying to mask his tremor of fear with bravado. But doubt crept in like a thief in the night. What had he stumbled into? "Oh, I think I do," Victor replied, his voice silky smooth, "and it would be a shame if, say, Margot accidentally got tangled up in your family's business." Jake's heart fell. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, desperation edging his voice. "To start, I want the location of the old mechanic's shop where your family has buried secrets that have been guiding the gears of power for generations," Victor said, voice low, dangerous enough to slice through the anxiety hanging in the air. "This is more than just a game, Jake. It's about survival." The gravity of his words hit Jake harder than any fist. Everything crashed down like shattering glass. "I want to help you." He spat, fury igniting his resolve. Victor's smirk barely wavered. "Oh, you don't have a choice, my friend. You bring me what I want, and Margot walks away unharmed." "No." Jake fired back, anger swelling in his chest. "I will never help you hurt her." The clang of a plate crashing to the ground broke their intense glare, and the icy chill in the air shifted, momentarily shattered by the pulse of fear running through every patron in the diner. Jake's mind spun wildly, frantically calculating options, every second a countdown. A sudden roar of engine sounds pierced through the diner's thin walls, a sound that grew sharper, closer. Victor's smirk wavered, eyes narrowing. "Looks like our time is running out," he hissed, stealing a glance toward the window as the noise intensified. Jake seized the moment. "Now!" he yelled, thrusting Margot toward the door. "Run!" With a flick of his wrist, Victor reached for something concealed, but Jake lunged. Time seemed to stand still, the movement of the diners blurred into a frozen tableau as fear and hope spiraled through him. Margot moved first, her instincts kicking into gear, darting past Victor and out into the chaos of the street. Jake followed, heart pounding so hard it was like a drumbeat energizing his every step. There was no time for second thoughts, no room for hesitation. As he burst outside, the sound of the idling SUV rang through the dimly lit street, the same one that had dogged his footsteps since all of this began. Margot screamed from behind him, her voice clawing at the corners of the night. "Jake! This way!" Taking her lead, they sprinted towards a side alley, the world blurring around them. The growl of an engine chased them, the headlights swathing the darkness in harsh light. Breathless, fear clawing at his throat, Jake could feel the desperation brewing within him, twisting tighter than ever. Margot glanced back, a look of fierce determination filling her eyes as she slowed. "We can find you answers. We just need to believe we can." In that moment, Jake felt a weight lift. The giant, overwhelming obstacles ahead could be faced, together. "You'll stay safe with me," he vowed, adrenaline igniting courage deep in his core. But suddenly, as they turned back toward the street, the monstrous SUV cut them off. Tires screeched, and fists balled at his sides. Panic twisted tight as dawning realization slashed through him. They were trapped between Victor's threat and the unknown. "Margot!" Jake called again, fear kicking sharply in his chest. "We need to find a way out now." Margot's expression turned fierce, determination raging in her voice. "We won. Let him win." With a fierce roar, Jake grabbed Margot's wrist and propelled them forward, slipping through the wreckage of doubts. Together, they orchestrated their escape, confidence igniting chains of courage between them as they dashed into the night. With each step, toward the glimmer of hope that guided them beneath a searing moon, they hurtled forward, ready to confront whatever lurked in the darkness. To face the connection buried deep in their family's past. To unveil the truth, no matter how terrifying it may be. And as they disappeared into the night, a single thought coursed through his mind: no matter the dangers ahead, together, they would navigate the storms of fate. The truth would be their fortress. Hope was their weapon. This was only the beginning. Before you leave, I need you to do something big. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. I want to hear your thoughts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your actions matter, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these steps.